Hello, growers. Protect your crops from harmful insects with Modern Growers Insectanet. This top-tier insect netting made by Modern Grower shields your plants from pests and harsh weather, boosting your yields without harmful sprays. Insectanet's unique design allows 90% of the light to pass through and is easy to use with low tunnel systems like our Quick Hoops. It's soft, elastic, and durable, perfect for field use to help ensure that your crops thrive. Say goodbye to pest damage and hello to healthier, market-ready produce. Invest in Insectanet and see the difference it makes. Get Insectanet at shop.moderngrower.co or using the link below.
I'm all about how short of a cycle can I get and how many different crops can I get on that cycle? That's my thing. And a lot of that comes from, as it is with a lot of microgreens growers, you have a limited number of space, so that quick turnover is important. And so you've got these longer cycle microgreens along with some of the shorter cycle ones. So I wonder if you can just talk in general about how is that different in terms of managing those crops because of their duration, things like that.
Yeah, managing the crops, really, the big thing to consider is nutrition and how those crops, how you get them to harvestable size, feeding them properly. That's really the biggest consideration. Yeah, yes, we're not as concerned with space. We have enough room that we can afford to do these longer grows, because this is what our clients demand, right? This is the kind of stuff that they want. That's the commitment that we've made, and really we have implemented tools. We've been growing all the long varieties for quite some time, but other than fertilizer and our fertigation program, we also use software now to track all of our grows.
And one thing that stands out for me, and we'll talk about space in a little bit, is when I think of a tray. So you mentioned as growers, we think about these units of trays, but there's the tray and the space it takes up, and then there's the tray and the time it takes up. When I think about that, how does that change how you organize your space? When I think about growing crops like radish or sunflower, a lot of these crops, I harvest a crop and another one just replaces it right away. And it's on this really simple cycle. But you might have multiple generations of some of these things as you've got something coming to its end, something near the middle of its maturity, something at the beginning. I imagine you might even have 4, 5, or 6 generations of some things going. So what does that look like in terms of space management for you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think Goldfarm is quite unique in how we approach production and sales. Don't think a lot of other growers follow the same ethos that we do. We take orders in an additive method, meaning that we only grow to order. We work with standing orders with all of our clients, meaning, yes, if I have something that takes 3 or 4 weeks to grow, I have at least 3 or 4 generation of that on the racks at any given time. Managing that in terms of the physical space, you can think of it like conveyor belt. We use flood tables. They're 4 foot by 8 foot flood tables. They have a capacity of 16 trays each. We try and group like with like varieties. That could be like with like. Definitely has to be in terms of lighting schedules and also in terms of watering schedules. All of the basil, for example, let's say we use 3 different flood tables. So we have different generations on different flood tables. And as one comes out, when the next comes out of germination, they just keep moving up like a conveyor belt. So the oldest ones move up and we slot the new ones in the lowest level. And that kind of works all over the farm. We label, we use the racking we use like magnetic labels to indicate which crops go where. In such a large space, we have microclimates here and there that where there's more airflow and less airflow, a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler. So we have a map of where everything goes in the system, and we just rotate things in and out as needed.
So your crops are actually changing location as they progress through the maturity.
It's not a major change. It's because we only have about a foot difference, a foot of space between the bottom of the lower table and the bottom of the table above. So they're only moving a foot up or a foot down,
Right.
but generally staying in the same vicinity in the system.
So do you make changes to, for example, I think of maybe a basil, whatever, it's moving up in this racking system, maybe over several weeks, it moves up 2 or 3 tiers. Do you make any changes? Lighting stay the same, temperature stay the same, anything like that?
We haven't gone to that length, that precise length. We installed an HVAC system, which keeps the room pretty steady in terms of humidity and temperature. So we don't really change anything. We don't change the lighting schedule. All we do is just we have been adding a supplemental fertilizer to those longer growing crops. However, as we move away from hand watering, which is something that we're working on right now, we are doing experiments with other fertilizers that we can mix in when we open new bales of soil, rather than having to introduce fertilizer later in the grow.
So you've mentioned nutrition quite a bit, and it makes a lot of sense that you've got a small amount of soil, you've got a longer cycle, so there's going to need to be more nutrition there. Are there other differences or other sort of cultivation differences you do between the longer cycle crops and the shorter cycle crops like radish, sunflower, and that? Nutrition comes to mind first thing for me. I wonder about soil type, soil depth, lighting schedules, things like that. I wonder what's different. And I ask this, I mean, I know I'm supposed to be somewhat of an expert, but I really go towards those shorter cycle crops. And I think about, if I am growing a longer cycle crop, it's going to be in there more time, but I wonder about the other things that I might want to or have to adjust in order to get that optimum crop on a cycle that's 3 or 4 times as long as what I'm used to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I would say the first thing to consider is just seed density. I'll grow shorter cycle crops at a much more dense rate, even relatively than longer cycle crops. Now, that's also because with longer cycle crops, I'm pushing them past the cotyledon phase. I want those true leaves. People will still sell cilantro micros, for example, either no true leaf or a really small true leaf, whereas we're really pushing, I want that true leaf to be well established when I'm selling that cilantro, because that's what chefs want. That's what I think looks the best and is going to represent that on when you're looking at it on a plate, because that's how myself and my clients are thinking about it. So seed density is a big factor. More and more, we're realizing that the tray depth is a factor. Since the very beginning, I've always used shallow trays. I just find it easier when it comes to harvesting, but I had some deep trays lying around, and we were seeing some issues with a few of especially the longest growing crops. And we've noticed that just changing them to deeper trays has essentially resolved a lot of the issues we were seeing. We weren't sure if it was nutrient deficiencies or what, but sometimes it seems just the depth, and whether that has to do with those varieties just liking the roots, liking more depth, or the increased volume of soil may just mean more nutrients are available. I don't really know how to figure that out, but it definitely has made a difference. Fertigation, tray depth, seed density, watering schedules, those are all really crucial things to consider when you're growing longer crops.
Yeah, those are some interesting. I've experimented with tray depth quite a bit as well. And I wonder if, I think a lot of the short cycle crops, they have rooting systems that can really adapt to that shallow soil. And when you get into the longer crops, maybe some of them tend more towards a taproot or things like that. Yeah, that might be something nice to explore a little bit.
Hello, growers. Looking to turn your homestead into a profitable business? Or are you a farmer looking to boost your sales? Check out my book, Sell Everything You Grow. This book is the ultimate guide to choosing the right farm business model that fits your farm, time, and location. Discover which model has the highest profit margins and why diversification is so important. Whether you're selling apples, vegetables, or microgreens, Sell Everything You Grow will help you find your first market or expand into new ones. Get Sell Everything You Grow on Amazon and start selling more today.